When a gimmick is given to a WWE wrestler, it can either be a blessing or a curse. That gimmick could either elevate them to new heights in their career or send them straight down to weekly velocity shows. However, the wrestlers we look at on this list had the misfortune of building their career with a good gimmick only to be repackaged with a gimmick that screamed lackluster quality, killing any success built from their previous character. In this video, we're gonna look at 10 of the worst repackagings in WWE history. Just to note though, some even though awful, such as Dusty Rhodes' polka dots for the common man gimmick was designed to be humiliating, but it was still over like crazy because Dusty still made it work. So we'll exclude any gimmicks on the list that were stupid but still massively over. Oh, and no debut gimmicks, so the likes of Red Rooster Terry Taylor and Dean Douglas are off this list. Number 1. One-Man Gang to Hakeem. George Gray entered the WWF as the One-Man Gang, a big rough and tough biker who sported a mohawk and pretty much spent most of his time mowing down enhancement talent as well as being involved in high profile matches against the likes of Hulk Hogan and Randy Savage, mostly in losing efforts. However, even though OMG had been in the WWF for only a year, Creative concluded that he needed a fresh new look. In April 1988, manager Slick announced the former Big Chain biker found out secretly he was from Africa. In a sketchy back alley that was actually filmed in Stamford, Connecticut, a ceremony had been performed to unveil OMG's new African look. Now sporting a huge yellow dashiki and talking jive, which in those days could only assume WWF thought all African Americans spoke, the one-man gang would be known as Hakeem.
I am Hakeem.
All political incorrectness aside, the African Dream would initially have moderate success teaming with the Big Boss Man as the Twin Towers, but after Boss Man's face turn, his singles run was a complete dud, fading into the background only to leave for WCW, reassuming his one-man gang gimmick. Number 2. Tito Santana to El Matador. After becoming Intercontinental Champion, competing as one half of the successful tag team Strike Force and later becoming a mid-card sensation, Tito Santana adopted a Spanish bullfighter gimmick in 1991, nicknamed as El Matador. However, even after Tito went to great lengths for the gimmick, traveling to Mexico to train actual bullfighting, his only memorable moment was facing Shawn Michaels in the opening bout at WrestleMania 8, in a losing effort. Thereafter, Tito was demoted to lower card bouts and house shows only. Santana believed the gimmick could have been so much more though, as he explained in an interview with Title Match Wrestling. Vince McMahon asked me if I wanted to become a matador. I went to train in Mexico. To become a bullfighter. I wasn't crazy about the gimmick, but they had told me that I was going to be up again in some of the main bouts. I worked hard to master the matador gimmick. They just didn't do that much with me. I don't know why, but I think they missed an opportunity there for me to make the matador gimmick work. Number 3. Jim the Anvil Neidhart to who? Poor Jim Neidhart. The two-time WWF champion had massive success teaming up with Bret the Hitman Hart as the Hart Foundation. However, Neidhart couldn't seem to find success after he and Bret decided to go their separate ways. A team with Bret's brother Owen as the new foundation floundered, and Neidhart left the WWF in 1992, followed by a very brief stint in WCW. In July of 1996, the WWF went with a WrestleCrap winning run as Who, a mass wrestler whose name Who was designed to play for laughs. Unfortunately, no one was laughing, and Who was gone from the WWF before fall of that year. Years later, Neidhart revealed on the In Your Head wrestling radio show the gimmick was a punishment. He mentioned, "Oh brother, I'll tell you, that was some real BS. I think that was more like a little punishment thing. I think they found some of that horrible devil in my system, and finding the devil, they suspend you, let you go home for a couple of weeks to rest up. They threw me back on the road and said, okay, we're going to torture him a little bit. We're going to take that pink and black off you and throw you in a yellow mask as a single. If you've never worked with a mask on before, wow, it's a big difference. You can't see. You had no peripheral vision. If you're wrestling with that mask on, you have to look at your opponent constantly. It's way harder to wrestle with a mask on than it is without, because you have to tell people what you're doing a little bit without actually looking at them. You have to use way more body language, which is really different. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. Walking into a big venue sold out and you're trying to do a single with a mask on, and you don't know what the hell you're doing. Fortunately, he was able to return in 1997 as Jim Neidhart, becoming part of Bret Hart's expanded Hart Foundation, appearing with Owen and Bret Hart, the British Bulldog, and Brian Pillman. This would be Neidhart's last big run before getting lost in the shuffle, moving to WCW. Number 4. Chavo Guerrero to Kerwin White. In June 2005, former Cruiserweight and Tag Team Champion Chavo Guerrero ditched his Hispanic heritage in favor of the Anglo-American way. He transformed from a fiery Latino into the bland, stereotypical middle-class Kerwin White. However, the gimmick was dropped after the passing of Eddie Guerrero, but it's hard to say how long the WWE would have continued with the awful gimmick hadn't it been for his untimely passing. Number 5. Devon Dudley to Reverend Devon. Okay, the Dudley Boys weren't exactly established in WWE, it was an ECW creation. However, the Dudley Boys had a tremendous amount of success in the WWF, winning both the WWF and WCW Tag Team Championships. That is until the duo were forced to split after the roster was divided into two separate brands, Raw and SmackDown in 2002. Bubba Ray ended up on Raw and Devon ended up on SmackDown, turning heel, becoming a villainous Reverend character who served as Mr. McMahon's spiritual advisor and introducing his protege, Deacon Batista. More on him in another video. The run was a complete flop, with Devon's only memorable moment defeating Triple H after interference from Chris Jericho. The gimmick was swiftly dropped, with the two reuniting only a few months later. Number 6. Tony Atlas to Saba Simba. Atlas was at one time one of the biggest names in wrestling, mostly in the late 70s, as he was the first wrestler to pin Hulk Hogan in Madison Square Garden, though Hogan's foot was on the ropes and the ref didn't see this. Atlas also tagged with several other wrestlers including Tommy Rich to win the NWA Georgia Tag Team titles, and Rocky Johnson, being the first African Americans to win the WWF Tag Team Championship. Unfortunately, during the late 80s, Atlas wound up homeless after an addiction to drugs. He managed to clean up his act after returning as Saba Simba, a warrior from a Ugandan tribe. The gimmick didn't last long, and Atlas left after only a handful of matches. Number 7. The Earthquake to Golga. The Earthquake was one of Hogan's most formidable foes, almost taking him out of action for good. After Hogan had completely buried him, he joined with Typhoon to form the powerful team The Natural Disasters, winning the tag team gold. He would leave in 1994, joining the Dungeon of Doom in WCW. He would, however, return to the WWF in 1998, strangely not as the Earthquake, but under a completely new gimmick as Golga. Golga would be part of the Oddities, with the only trait of being obsessed with Eric Cartman from South Park. He would wear his t-shirt and even carry a stuffed toy of him everywhere he went. Both he and the stable were short-lived, disappearing altogether in 1999. Number 8. Demolition Smash to the Repo Man. Barry Darsow is one of those wrestlers who found success with several gimmicks in his career. His run as the American wrestler turned communist sympathizer Crusher Khrushchev saw great success when he teamed with Ivan and Nikita Koloff in Jim Crockett Promotions. He transformed into Smash, one half of the leather-clad face-painted team Demolition in the WWF. This too was a successful change, with Demolition becoming more than just Road Warrior wannabes, winning over WWF fans on their way to 3 WWF Tag Team Championship reigns. Darsow, however, pressed his luck when he became Repo Man, a heel who would steal things from wrestlers, looking like a Zorro reject. The crazy part about this repackaging was that it was Darsow's idea. Number 9. Fatu to the Sultan. It's time to make a change. That was Fatu's motto in the mid-90s. Thing is, we didn't think that change would be transforming a Samoan into an Arabian Sultan. With a Sub-Zero-like mask and a shaved ponytail, the Sultan debuted at WrestleMania 13 to a limp reaction. The masked man would never speak, supposedly due to his tongue being cut out. Yikes. After challenging the blue chipper Rocky Maivia unsuccessfully for the IC Championship, the Sultan would disappear. Thankfully for Fatu's career, he was again repackaged as Rikishi, which was massively over. And number 10. Leo Kruger to Adam Rose. Though it certainly needed a little more work, the character of Leo Kruger was a solid act in WWE. His gimmick was a psychotic South African hunter who, in his words, moved on from traditional quarries and started hunting people. The gimmick was over, and Kruger won the FCW Championship twice during his stay in developmental. After 4 years playing the gimmick, fans were surprised to see the once maniacal hunter had transformed into a comedic Russell Brand party-loving wannabe. Now he went under the name Adam Rose, accompanied by the Exotic Express, and on occasions teaming with a man in a bunny costume. The gimmick was a massive change, with many fans not accepting the party lover. However, things would be even worse for Rose when his bunny abruptly departed WWE, noting the party was officially over, including his WWE career after reports surfaced that he had been arrested for domestic abuse. Acknowledging his mistakes, he has now gone back to the Leo Kruger character on the independent circuit, but stated earlier last year that 2017 would be his final year wrestling. Well guys, there you have it, 10 worst repackagings in WWE history. There are still so many, so we are planning a part 2, and also the 10 best repackagings in WWE history. Be sure to comment below, subscribe if you haven't already, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.